Feel free to enjoy. I've been a professional developer for almost 20 years, if you count my internships. I'm primarily a .NET Microsoft developer. I like data. I like working on databases. I like middleware. I'm not a great, I call myself a half-stack developer, not a full-stack developer. I don't know if that's a new term or not. But something that just dawned on me as I was walking in here. The last time I presented in this room was for the Oncology Hematology Care reunion dinner, and I was the keynote speaker. So I'm also a cancer survivor. I'm officially cured. I've beat leukemia 5 times between 2007 and 2010. So it means a lot to me to be back here. But we're not going to talk about that today. Today, we're going to talk about Azure DevOps. And there's a couple things I want you to know, I want you to leave with when you get out of here. I want you to understand the advantages of using an integrated ALM, or an application lifecycle management tool. I want you to understand the relationships between builds, drops, and releases. And I want you to show you, what I'm going to show you in my demo is I'm going to take a user story all the way through to releasing to a mock production environment. And I also want you to walk away from here with enough information so that you can play with Azure DevOps yourself. Because there's so much information in this. There's already like several other talks about Azure DevOps today. There's bunches of different ways to look at it. So I'm going to give you kind of a developer perspective. I've been using Azure DevOps, so it was previously called Visual Studio Team Services, or TFS Online, for several years. I've done a lot of configuration management. I think it's a great tool. And what I like about it is that throughout my career, I've worked for a lot of startups, I've worked for a lot of companies, and I hear questions like, all the time, like, what's in staging? Did my thing get deployed? When did that get deployed? What's going on? Where are we at with this project? How many people have have feared having to do a deployment because deployments turn out to be a pain in the butt? Anybody ever experienced that? Everybody raise your hands because you've all experienced that at one time or another. I'm going to show you how to make that easier. And I'm a lazy developer, meaning that I like to do as little work as possible. So anything that I can automate, I want to automate. And I'm going to show you that towards the end of my speech. But since this is intro to Azure DevOps, let's talk about what this is. Azure DevOps is a complete tool. It's an ALM that allows you to go from planning and inception of your project, planning sprints, implementing your code, building your code, deploying your code, and then maintaining your code all in one environment. And it's tightly integrated with Visual Studio so that you've got an integrated tool. There are 5 main pieces to Azure DevOps. You've got your boards, which is for your planning, your user stories, your tasks, your epics, your features, etc. Then you've got a place to store your code in a repo. You've got 2 options using Git, Visual Studio version control. You've got your Azure pipelines, which is where you implement your builds, and you've got your releases. And you can start from a story, and you can go all the way to a release product. In addition, there's another feature in there. You've got test plans, which are set up for manual testing, because of course we all write automated unit tests in our code. And you also have Azure Artifacts. So if you want resources you want to share, you can self-host your own NuGet packages or various other packages. Azure DevOps is not just for developing for Microsoft. With Visual Studio 2019, you can start building for a whole lot of different platforms. And so they changed their name to Azure DevOps because they didn't want it to be associated with Microsoft development. You can do lots of different development on Azure DevOps. You can compile for a Mac. There's a way to build code for a Mac with a hosted Mac build agent. You can write code for Linux, the various flavors. In addition to these, there's also a rich marketplace where you can get third-party tools to help with the process of deploying code, building code. There's 2 versions of Azure DevOps. There's the cloud version, which is the one I'm going to show you today, and there's the on-prem version, which might be a requirement for your organization. Microsoft uses dog foods Azure DevOps. This is an older slide, but to give you kind of the scale at which they use it, they've got, I know this number is old, I know it's closer to like 90,000 deployments per day. They've got over 4 million builds, about 400,000 pull requests per month. They're using this, and this is literally just the team developing Azure DevOps. Microsoft's goal is to get to a uniform way of deploying all of their, or developing and building all of their code in Microsoft, and this is what they're using to do that. You always got to talk about pricing. Is it free? So one of my goals today is to make it so that you can go home and play with this. And what's really cool is that they support open source projects and private projects. There's an advantage to with what resources you get for free if you create an open source project, but on your own you can create a private project where you get up to 5 users for free, and you get a whole bunch of cool features. You get one hosted pipeline for continuous integration and development. You get access to the boards, which allow you to do your issue tracking and your work item tracking. You get access to an unlimited number of repositories, and you get access to your packages. And for load testing, you get 20,000 virtual user minutes. So again, it's an ALM, you get to work on many things. I mentioned that Microsoft has, in the last couple of years, as you've seen with like .NET Standard, Microsoft is making 2 moves. One, they've made a huge move into the open source community. These are an example of several popular projects that are using Azure DevOps right now. And I commend them for doing that. One of the places you're going to want to start when you're going to work with Azure DevOps is, I'm going to show you this in a second, it has excellent help. I can't cover everything in here. There's a lot of advanced topics. And it's a really full-featured ALM. And I'm going to point out something here. If you look closely, which you probably can't see, but there's a lot of online labs in here. So you can download from GitHub, which fully integrates with Azure DevOps. You can download some labs so you can play with different configurations on different platforms and use this tool to build them. It's very cool. There is also a demo generator, which allows you to get into serious advanced projects. So when you download the code, it allows you to build and deploy on a demo site your database, your front end on multiple platforms. In the demo that I'm about to give, I'm about to switch over to, I'm going to talk about branching. I'm using what is called trunk-based development. It's our preferred way of doing branching at SDS. There's several flavors of it, but I personally like it a little better than GitFlow because merging is hard, and I don't like merging personally. But the main difference between trunk-based development and GitFlow is that with trunk-based development, you want your feature branches to be small and destroyed as quickly as possible, with the idea of making merging easier. I'm going to show you a demo with a project site that I've set up ahead of time, and I'm going to demonstrate trunk-based branching. What that really means is that I'm going to check into master directly, and I'm going to work out a master. And I'm going to show you that with builds and releases and pipelines, that's going to keep track of your history and your releases and completely automate that for you. So, and then if I have time, I'm going to create a development branch and then walk through the process of creating a build and creating a release. And again, if anybody has any questions up until this point before I dive into my demo, now would be a good time. I'll also answer questions at the end. I will also put up some links, including a link to this. This is a document that I found by fishing around the help in the Azure DevOps site. And there's a how does Microsoft do it? This is how they're doing their work. So, without further ado, I want to show you the site that I have created and the environments that I have created. So, to start out, this is my CincyDeliver DevOps demo project. When you first create your own Azure DevOps site, you'll go to dev.azure.com and you're going to sign up. And the first thing it's going to do is you're going to create an organization. which I have come on, internet. There we go. At the organization is where you organize your users. This is where you add and invite users. When you create one for the first time, you get 5 free users. After 5, it's $6 a month. And if you have bigger teams and you want to use the manual testing functionality, there's another price for that. So I've created a Cincy Azure DevOps demo, and so I talked to you about those 5 main features. You can see them here. Let's make this bigger. The 5 main areas. You've got your boards, which consist of your work items, your backlogs, your sprints, and then queries to see what your work items are, your repositories. So let's start with the boards. Come on. And since I created a project to build my presentation, come on, internet. Thinking. There we go. You can see that I've actually completed some stories so I could get ready for today. And I don't have a full backlog. I'm going to actually create a story. So so in addition to that, so here's what I've built. This is my production site. This is the basic ASP.NET Core template file when you create a new project. Normally you'd have a database backend, but I just wanted to show you the process and show you how you can link user stories to releases. And since this is Cincinnati Delivers, I thought it would be cool to deliver some pizza, so I made it a pizza site. So here we have my example page. And so I want to actually deliver some pizza. So let's dive in, and as we get to the features, I'll show you how we can go from a story. So let's create my new item. Let's create a user story, and let's just follow the correct user story syntax. So as an attendee of CD 2019, I want pizza because it is lunchtime. I am now. So I have a story. I've got some work to do. I'm now going to drag it over to the active column because I'm a disciplined developer and my boss likes looking and knowing what I do. That's not always true. So now that I'm active, now I've got to get some pizza. So I'm going to do that by adding an image to my site, which I've conveniently staged right here. So I'm going to uncomment this line, and I'm going to run. This is not the exciting part. Thanks for hanging with me. And we're going to build succeeded. Pizza. It is now an official pizza site. I just thought it was cute that it went from Day of Agile to Cincinnati Delivers. So we can also deliver pizza. So I have made my change. I'm testing it locally. The next step for me to do is to check that in. So I'm going to stop the debugger. I'm going to open Team Explorer. I'm going to go to Changes. I'm going to enter a comment. Pizza delivered. And I'm going to commit this branch. I'm in my master branch down here, which I cannot make you see. You'll just have to trust me in Git. So I'm going to commit, but I'm going to use the shortcut. I'm going to hit commit all and push because I am the only person on this project right now. So it doesn't make sense for me to have multiple branches. Even with a small team, with 1 or 2 people, it doesn't make sense to have a developer branch. Because especially if you wanted to do gated check-ins. And that's where you have code reviews before somebody can commit to master. If that guy's on vacation, you're not going to be able to check in. Or you're going to make him work on vacation. So I have now checked in. So let's go back to Azure. I have set up a build. I'm in the pipelines now. I have created a build. Let's look at my builds. And so here's the build. I set up CI, so when I check that into master, it automatically created a build. And I'll show you guys how to do that shortly. And right now I'm building. So I've got some time to kill. This takes a few minutes. When you sign up for a project site, you automatically get 1,800 build minutes per month for free. They want your credit card, so if you go over that, they have a way to charge you. To set this up, there are a lot of free assets in Azure that you can use to do this. Here in a moment, I'm going to show you the resources that I've created in Azure, in the Azure portal. I've actually created 3 mock environments by creating I've provisioned 3 different app services. And let me re-log in here. My session expired. And I'm going to deploy this, as soon as this is done building, I'm going to show you how I automated this build. You can set up releases from the cloud to not just cloud services. If you have a local instance of Azure DevOps server, you can deploy locally to local web servers, databases, etc. from that. That is called a self-hosted build agent, and so there's a way to make this work for everybody. On the current project that I'm on, in order to do integration testing, we required a self-hosted agent because we need to be able to tear down and set up databases and not actually have to provide access to that from the cloud. So Azure DevOps runs in the cloud. The code that you see building over here right now, is done. That's good. That means I checked in good code. When this built, what it did, Azure spun up a VM configured to build my ASP.NET Core 2.2 application, and it provisioned that and it ran all the tasks needed to build my code. We will dive into that in a second. So now that my code is built, I'm going to release it. And if you look at my pipeline, you can see that I've already released the code 5 times. And if you scroll over, we can see that I've had 3 successful deployments to multiple environments. I've got a QA environment, a staging environment, and a production environment, which I wanted to show you. Give me 1 second. Try again. There we go. So I have provisioned 3 different app servers on here. So if you want to try to set something up like this, get your free Azure subscription. And if your 200 free minutes is already expired, go ahead and sign up. Go ahead and sign up for it, and make sure you use the free resources. There are 25 free resources inside of Azure DevOps, and one of them happens to be a fairly low-powered app service. Now, an app service in Azure is just a way to host a website that's on the cloud. And so if we look at these 3 environments, I've got these 3 tabs open here. Let me hide. So this is my prod site. Excuse me. This is my test site, my QA site, and this is my staging site. So it's really easy to set this up. It's definitely worth it, and I wanted to show you guys an end-to-end solution today and show you how you can set this up. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. It's important to play with this to understand how powerful this tool is. Like, I can't do it justice, especially during lunch and 45 minutes. Okay. So now that my code is built, it was supposed to automatically kick off, but it did not. So I'm going to scroll down. So now I'm ready to push this into, I'm going to call it my QA, but it might be my team's site so that everybody can work together. I was working on my local machine, but now I need my code to work with other people's, even though this is just a one-man project. I'm going to click the Create Release button. And I'm just going to hit Create. And if I click on Release 6, nothing is, it is automatically started because this is how I configured it. Right now I'm looking at the definition for a release, and right this artifact here on the left, that is what was the result of my build. This is important. When you use an ALM, it's important to understand that you're going to deploy the same compiled piece of code to multiple environments. And you definitely have to do that, because if you're recompiling it every time you deploy, you're invalidating your testing, because what you tested is not what went to the next environment. And that wrapped up piece of code is called a drop. They call it artifact here. It's one of the few things I don't like about Azure DevOps, but they're called a drop. And drops are great because you can retain those drops. So for instance, if you need to go back to a previous version, or you need to see what was, or you need to create a new environment, or you need to see what was deployed, you have access to all that information. All that is stored in Azure DevOps. And so here we have, of course, it's queued. Here in a second, this will start deploying to our QA site. While that's deploying, I've got some time to fill. What would be really fun is if, like, this is like the pentacle of my presentation. It would be fun if it times out. So anyhow, well, let's go back to the build, right? So if we go to the history, not the history. If I go back to my pipelines, we can see. I'm on builds. I'm on releases. We can see what was deployed, and we can see here. So we ask the question, what's been deployed? Here I have links to my previous. Oh, cool, it's done now. Here we can see that branch 2019 ... has been deployed. Touchscreen. Sorry. Has been deployed to QA, and it has been promoted. We know what branch is here. We can see history here because here we have linked to the actual commits. And so if I want to see what we did last time, I can click on this branch right here. This is where this is really powerful. And up here, I can see that this came out of the master branch and that this was the commit. And when I go to the commit, loaded. That's not what I want. I can see the associated work item that was done. And here was me staging my presentation. This work item is here. This could be a long list, by the way. Add pizza images to project, because I didn't want to be up here fumbling and writing code and potentially screw up. But here's history. Let's go back a couple more times. I'm hitting the back button. Actually, nope. Where'd my mouse go? I'm going to go back to my releases. It takes me to builds. Let's look at release 4. What did I do in release 4? Which was last night at about 10 o'clock. Let's go back to my build. Here's the build that I released. Here's the code. I go back, I click on this. This is the build. And here's the work items that were committed into this. So I did a merge. I created a false PR so that I could fill this up, and I changed my git ignore so that I wasn't committing my build, my bin to source control. Let's see. So now, that's awesome. What's really cool about these pipelines, and something that I've implemented in the past, I keep clicking on the wrong thing, I apologize. So if I look at the definition of this pipeline, you can see that I've set it up to take this one artifact and push it to multiple environments. Something I want to say about the artifacts. I compiled one project. That doesn't mean that you can only compile one thing at a time. You can have multiple websites in there. You can configure it so that you have multiple websites. You can have databases. You can push out to Azure resources. You can build for local resources. But your drop has to have everything in it that you need to deploy. You can have multiple artifacts. You don't have to have everything there. So if it makes sense to logically separate your project and say into separate repos, or separate projects that build independently because you want some isolation, you don't want something over here breaking something over here, you have that flexibility. So I'm going to hammer this home. Artifacts are deployed to multiple environments. And you deploy the same compiled and tested code to multiple environments so that you know that what's in stage, and what in test, and what's in production are the exact same thing. That gives you confidence that your code is going to work. It's really important to make sure that your staging environment looks like your production environment, because there's no, but as the saying goes, real men test in production. That's an inside joke of my team. Or, I don't always test, but when I do, I test in production. That's Dos Equis guy. So let's go back to my releases. Oh, let's prove that I actually deployed this. So this is my staging environment, which was green. Green is good. We're going to sit here and load, recompile. Boom! Pizza has been delivered. I'm sorry I don't have any actual pizza. You can applaud. Thank you. Now you can stop. I just added an image. Thank you. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back. Let's finish this deployment. I'm going to click on this button here. It's going to take me here. I don't have this set up to automatically deploy. What's really cool is in your organization, you don't want to just have anybody be able to accidentally click and deploy to prod. That would be really bad, especially if the build failed or the test failed. So you can set up gating on the actual release process too. You can have people approve that. You can have people say confirm that the previous deployment was successful and that the code's test is not always. You can't always catch things with automated tests. Windows Vista is proof of that. Back to my pipeline. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. In school, there's several different ways to deploy. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. So what we've seen so far is we've seen, and this is the whole message that I'm trying to share you here with this specific part of Azure DevOps, is that if your developers track their work, and funny fact is, part of my demo that I screwed up, is that when I checked in my code, I'll have to do this again. I was supposed to link the work item to it, and I forgot to do it. I'm a bad developer. I screwed up my own demo. But when a developer checks in Visual Studio, if they link the work item by selecting that, that's how that shows up. And that's very powerful because that takes the place of having to do release management, figure out what's where, and figure out what went where when, which is always a hard thing to track. And here you have a tool that does it for you. Yes, this is a sales presentation. Yes, I want you to use Azure DevOps. I think it's cool, and I think it saves a ton of time. Where am I at with my release? Did it deploy? Oh, I forgot to hit deploy. So just to finish this out, I'm gonna continue deploying to this. And actually, I think you guys trust me at this point that this is going to go all the way through. I don't think we need to wait through that. So let's talk about how to do this. Let's talk about where we start. If you want to do this, provision yourself, or go sign up for the free trial for Azure DevOps. It's really easy to provision an app service. You just click on the app service button right here, and you hit add. This takes about a minute to. I have my subscription ran out, so I have a pay-as-you-go subscription. I'm only using free app resources, so this isn't costing me anything. You put in Azure, you put you combine all of your Azure things into what's called a resource group, and I have a demo resource group so that I can keep everything organized. I'm going to call this CincyDeliver Demo App Service. This is available on the net. You can see that it checks if the address is available, so it is. It's the name of my service, .azurewebsites.net. This was an Azure presentation. I tell you how to change that. I'm publishing code, not a Docker's image. I don't care what the Windows the operating system is. I got to select a runtime stack. Here, let me make it so you can see this. There we go. I'm going to select the runtime stack. I built a .NET Core 2.2 demo app. It's here, and I have selected the SKU and the size, the free F1, which is a puny server, which is probably why it's free. That's it. So I hit review and create, and it is now, nope, took me to this summary screen. I forgot something. Cool. Now my deployment's underway. That's how you create an app service if you want to test this, if you want to create that. If you want to create your own site, this is important. Let's create a new project. You're going to create your organization, you're going to use your name. When you come in, you're going to need to create a project first. So I'm going to create a project. You have the opportunity to have a public or a private project. If you're going to use Azure Managed to do this, use private. I was going to make a public demo for this so you guys could do it, but I didn't want you guys change or running builds and using up my minutes. Because you only get $1,800 a month for free. So you create a private, and under here, advanced. This is very important. There are 4 types of templates that you can select for your project. And this mainly affects the board complexity of how your stories, tasks, features, and epics are organized. And I have a quick link to this real quick. And just to show you what this looks like, this is in the help, and this is a demonstration. More or less, with the basic, you get 3 work item types. With the Agile, you get more work item types that are organized slightly different. I recommend the Agile type because Phil Pixie told me to. You have the Scrum type. You have, and this will be required homework for you guys when you guys get home. So I'm going to go back to my Azure, my site. Where'd it go? Oh, of course, I'm going to go back here and create my new project. I'm going to select private, and I'm going to select the Agile template. Project name will be new project. So this is how easy it is to set this up, and the power of the demo I just gave you is like, I don't know why we're not doing this. If you can just deploy and build with one button click, that's fantastic, and that's a tenet of continuous integration. We should all be doing continuous integration because integration has traditionally been the hardest part of software development. That's making my code work with your code, or Dave's code, or Manny's code, specifically Brian's code. It's okay. So we got a new site here. So we've got a repo. We've got a brand new repo. Well, let's clone our repo in Visual Studio. For those who are smart, I also have SourceTree down here. That's another Git tool that I like to use. I like SourceTree in conjunction with Visual Studio because it allows me to see everything I've changed all in one view. That's just a quick pitch for that. So I provision my repo. It's good to hit initialize. And then you can clone this in Visual Studio. Speaking of Visual Studio, you're going to want to connect, once you have your project created, you're going to want to connect to it. You do this by hitting, and I wish this was bigger, there, up here in the top right hand, there's a green plug. That's to connect. You want to connect your project to Visual Studio. When you click on this, it brings you to the connect. You click on Manage Connections, connect to a project. We wait for the internet to work. This will pop in here, and you can see that my new project is created. I can click on this, and it gives me the clone menu, and I've got my new project. I'm ready to do File New and create a new project. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. File New. This is exactly what I did to prepare for this demonstration. I file new project. I'm going to select ASP.NET Core container. I'm going to call it test project web. I've got my project created. I go over to Team Explorer. I hit changes. I created it in the wrong directory, so it didn't show up. But anyhow, that's okay. I want to get to since I'm running short on time, what I want to do is once I have that, and once I create my repo, I can then create a build. I click New Pipeline. Now, the new hotness in Azure DevOps, if you're going to do this, is YAML. I personally think the older way is easier to learn and easier to use, so you want to click this link down here, Create a Pipeline without YAML. Full disclosure, I don't know YAML yet. Microsoft has said that the old way is deprecated, but a lot of people are still using it. People have hundreds of builds, legacy builds already created, so I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And there's also a convenient button. You select your repo, you hit continue, You select what app you want to build. Now, this is kind of cool. I told you earlier that Azure DevOps is for building more than just .NET and Microsoft applications. You can see that it supports Python, Maven, Xcode, ASP.NET Core, lots of cloud stuff, Jenkins, Xamarin, Node.js. There's a ton of stuff that this tool is capable of, and I can't tell you all of it. That's why it's important that you feel comfortable to go in here and explore this stuff yourself. So if I go back into my build, let's look at the build that I built for the demo that I just gave. Build. I'm in the wrong project. Let me go back to my project. Build. Here we can see that I'm going to click on the edit button to edit my build. We're going to load. And so we see all the steps that are in the build. So a build consists of an agent that can be in the cloud or self-hosted on your local instance of Azure DevOps Server. And a build consists of several tasks. I did not have to know what these tasks were. When I created the template that I just showed you, where it said click on ASP.NET, it just filled those out for me, and all I had to do was fill in a couple of things. I had to name the build. This is up here. This is the pipeline. Think of a pipeline as you've got something goes in one end and out the other. In this case, it's source code, and a drop comes out the other end of a build pipeline or artifact. All I have to do, since this is I'm using 2019, which you can download as the community edition. I recommend that as well. Here's again. I can build on a hosted macOS. I can build on a hosted macOS with High Sierra. These are the things that I can build for. I can build for 2017. I can build for a hosted Windows container. There's a lot of power in here. I select that. Right here, I have this selected to build all the CS projects in my package. You can notice it says projects with an S. You can highlight all the projects that you want to build with this. You can specify there's names. That dot is Azure specific star that says find me anything that's named .project in all the folders in my repo. And if I was a good developer, I would have created test projects. You can execute your tests in here as well. That's what that last bit is. Next, we actually do our build. This is all you have to do. Those are the only steps you have to configure for this to build. So let me minimize this a little bit. This is already all set up. This is the template that you create. And I'll show you that in a second to prove it to you. This publish, this does the artifact. Now here's what's really cool. In my builds, if I click on the builds, I can automatically go to my release, but up here's my artifacts button. Here I can download what I built, and it's all in a zip file. Where'd it go? Here we go. Here's the Artifacts Explorer. And if I explore this, you can see this is the name of the project.zip. And this is the entire piece in here. And if I click on this, I can download this attribute. I can download this zip file. I don't know how long this will take. And you can see that everything that was built that's needed to build this app service is in that drop. And this is the actual drop. This is the actual code that's passed between all the different environments that I configured in the release. So if you don't believe me, let's go back to the builds. I should have done this over here. Let's create a new build with a new build pipeline. You get unlimited pipelines. You're just going to only run one or two at a time on the free one. I don't want to use YAML. Like I said, I'm not an expert, or I'm not good at that yet. So I click on the classic editor. I'm using my Azure Repo Git, which is here. I hit continue. I'm going to select the project that I built, which is an ASP.NET Core demo application. I hit apply. And there it is, all ready to go. The only thing I have to change is the right hosted build. And everything's already for me. I'm going to build off my master branch because that's what I have set up. This could be any of those things. Now, to set up CI, we should all be using continuous integration so that we don't accidentally check in broken code and find it later on. To set that up, you set your trigger, which is an option over here. It's pretty easy. Enable continuous integration. So that every time something gets checked into master, boom, there it is. Or you can schedule it. Or you can cascade builds. Lots of power here. Lots of very cool things. Here's build variables. There's retention history. You don't always have to hang on to your drops like 6 months from now, because I showed you have access to the commit. So the tool itself is keeping track of what the commit is. So you don't need to necessarily have that materialized, because if your builds are there, you can rebuild it from the commit. The benefit, and the reason why Microsoft went to YAML as opposed to that pretty little diagram there, is because YAML is a text file, and your builds can be stored in source control with it. I want to repeat that. Why does that matter? Because if I have to go back to something 6 months ago, and my project has evolved and my build has changed, how am I going to build that old code? With YAML, and to some extent the XAML, which is what I just demonstrated, you can you can pull back that build, get that old build definition back, and you can build the code the same way it was in the past. That's really cool. All right, so let's talk about the releases. Okay, so release, again, up here in the right-hand corner, you hit the edit button in order to release. You have for builds, you have build, it's kind of like the cookie cutter and the cookie. The build definition is the cookie cutter, the builds are the actual cookies. Same thing with releases. The release definition is the cookie cutter. The release itself is the cookie. We want lots of cookies. I should have said pizza in hindsight, since we're doing pizza. So, inside here, I select my artifacts. And you can add multiple artifacts, like I said. You can grab them out of your repo, you can grab them out of GitHub, or the legacy source control that was in there. This allows me to set, in the build, it allows me to select which build. If I had multiple builds, can you see that? All right, I would have multiple builds right here in the list that I could select from. And that's exactly what I did here. And so here configured as the artifact. So you got to have an artifact. And then, so I created an Azure, I created a new Azure web app. What did I call it? Let's go back to my page. Let's go back to my app services. So I can see that that's now. I called it, which one was it? Not staging, not product, demo app service. Let me go into here. Let me copy this so that I don't fat finger it. Let's go back into my, let's create a new stage. I'm going to do an Azure App Service deployment. It's this easy. I'm going to call it New Environment. Once I have that, I have my new box here. I'm going to go to the job. I have configured my Azure subscription as my pay-as-you-go subscription. You have to link, when you create your project for the first time, in order to do this, you have to link your subscription. In order to do that, you go into project settings. Yeah, I'll leave. You click on your service connections. It's very important that you sign up with your Azure account as the same account as your DevOps account, your Windows Live, the same Live ID. I made a mistake of disconnecting my account 2 days ago, and it caused a lot of problems. But when you do that, you create a new service connection, you click on Azure Repos, actually Azure Resource Manager, and you put your connection name, and you can get all this stuff directly from here. This already, because I have those connected, it automatically found my subscription, and I just had to name it and associate it with the resource group, which we talked about when I provisioned my app service. Come on, it's gonna make me log in. But to go back to my release definition, I'm just telling you where that came from. Create release. Nope, I don't want to release. Create new build definition. New release pipeline. I add a stage. I do an Azure service deployment. I call it test. What am I missing? Oh, I've got that created. I now go into the job. I select my Azure subscription. Pay as you go. App service name. This is the app service that I just created automatically for me. How nice is that? I click on my deploy app service. Do I have everything set here? The app service name. Save. I'm going to hit OK. Saving into the folder. I'm going to create a release. And hopefully this works, and I'm going to wrap up and take questions and give you guys opportunity to go talk to the vendors. My release has been created. Fingers crossed. We all thank the demo guys for a good release here that's going to happen. Thank you guys so much for your time. I hope this was helpful for you guys just to see the power that this ALM has, and I think it's pretty cool. So thank you guys for your time. Are there any questions? And just for